So in this session about the portal, we're going to describe the portal, its main functions, what its purpose is, and also we're going to demonstrate its main functionalities and show you how to deploy a SRE and manage a deployment through the website. So the portal's first function is to be an information website. As an information website, the portal collects information about PhenoMeNal, what it can do for you, how you can use it. All this information is accessible without authentication, so to any user who comes to the website. If you notice on top, at the top right of the portal website, you can see a little sign-in link, which indicates that the user is unauthenticated, and so all this content is accessible by anyone. The structure of the website is summarized by the button bar at the top, which gives direct access to each section. There are four main sections: the home section, the CRE section, the app library section, and help. The fifth link is to manage the user's account. So if we start with the first section, which is home, in the home section, a user can read about PhenoMeNal and its main features. As a user reads and gets information about the main functions of the portal, he can also access these functionalities directly through links. Through the portal, the user can also see applications that are available in PhenoMeNal. This is done through the app library. The app library is accessible through both the home page and also through the address link or the address bar that I showed you at the top earlier. So if we go to the app library, we can see that the app library lists the applications packaged with the PhenoMeNal e-infrastructure. The user can search for applications using a free text query. So if we, for instance, search for mass, we can see that the portal filters through the applications and presents us with applications that are somehow related to mass spectrometry. The user can also search using the criteria that are shown on the left by functionality, approaches, and instrument data type that needs to be processed. So if we, for instance, click on pre-processing as a functionality, the portal will present us with the applications that can be used to pre-process data. Now, for each tool that is an answer to our query, the portal presents a small box that summarizes what the tool does. So for instance, if we look at midcore, we see the little midcore box, and if we click on it, the portal presents us with a summary of additional information about the tool. So if we look through the details, we can see the tool name, the authors of the tool, and the tool container. We can see a link to the tool website, the version of the tool that was packaged with PhenoMeNal, the tool's main features and descriptions, and usually, or actually, for most tools, we can also find publications to cite at the bottom, so that if you've used this tool to run an analysis and you have some interesting results that you're publishing, you can cite the tool directly using this information. Now, this page is not meant to substitute the entire tool documentation. That is the onus on that is on the tool author and the website, which is accessible through the link that we saw earlier. It is, however, meant to be an overview of the tool. So if somebody's looking for tools that are on PhenoMeNal that they can use to run an analysis, this is sort of an initial shopping stop. And the other section in the portal is the help section. The help section contains various documentation about the PhenoMeNal project. All this content is pulled directly from the wiki. So It is documentation that's built up by the PhenoMeNal community. The main documentation sections are user documentation, user tutorials, which document the workflows that are included in PhenoMeNal, and finally developer documentation, which concern more people who are working on tools to include in PhenoMeNal or the PhenoMeNal platform itself. So through these documents, interested users can get additional details about the PhenoMeNal platform. They can get additional information about how to do things. For instance, how to get AWS credentials or Google Cloud Platform credentials that they can use PhenoMeNal on a real cloud infrastructure. Through the user tutorials, on the other hand, there are a series of workflows that are included with the PhenoMeNal e-infrastructure. Through those pages, the user can get an idea of how to use those workflows on the platform and what those workflows are doing to their data. Okay, so now let's go to the more, let's say, active part of the portal, the CRE section. So CRE stands for Cloud Research Environment. This part of the portal is concerned with accessing, creating, and managing CREs. Now, to start, an authenticated user is presented with the overview page where we explain what a CRE is and also present the user with two buttons which give them the opportunity to try the public instance or to try to create their own research environment. Now let's try seeing what the public instance is all about. So if a user is not quite ready to take the plunge, purchase cloud credits, or doesn't have a cloud that is accessible to them, they can still try out PhenoMeNal through the public instance, which is hosted by our own servers. By clicking on the button, the user is presented with the Galaxy instance that runs on the public PhenoMeNal instance. And they can see what tools are included. They can run small analyses. There's no real explicit limits on the resources that are available through this Galaxy installation. But still, as long as any reasonably sized analyses can be performed through this, with the understanding that this is a shared instance. So just like they clicked on try the free public instance, other users can also click on the same button and get access to the same public Galaxy installation. Now, if we go back to the CRE section, we can try to create our own CRE on our own cloud resources, which would be private and would be only accessible by us. So let's click on the Create Your Cloud Research Environment button. Now, the first thing we need to do if we want to create our own CRE is to authenticate with the system. Authentication is done through Elixir AAI, which means that we will need to authenticate, or the user will need to authenticate through one of the identity providers that PhenoMeNal uses. That is Google, LinkedIn, or Orchid. Okay, so you will need to be registered through one of those systems, or if your institution adheres with the Elixir AAI, then you'll be able to authenticate directly through your institute. Now, we've authenticated with Marco's account for this demo. So one step in particular has been skipped. So a new user that comes in and logs into PhenoMeNal will be presented with the terms and conditions to which they have to adhere to be able to use the platform. The most important things is that people agree not to upload sensitive information onto the PhenoMeNal e-infrastructure. because we cannot make any guarantees about the safety of that data. So people have to agree to only use anonymized data. In this, for Marco's account, he has already agreed to these terms and conditions, so the system hasn't presented him with the question. So now that we have logged in, we can see a couple of new things in the portal that weren't there before as we were accessing as anonymous users. So the first thing we notice is the user menu on the top right. Now the user menu allows us to see with which account we have logged in, and it also lets us sign out when we're done. The second new thing that wasn't there before is the CRE menu. So if we click on CRE now, we get presented with a menu which gives us options to manage our CREs, access the public instance, which we did already, and finally create a new CRE. Now we're going to try to create a new CRE. Okay, we can also create a new series through, to create a new series, after we click on the command, we get a list of options. So the first option here on the list is actually access to the original public instance, which we saw earlier. The other options that we have are the cloud providers from which we have to choose to instantiate our new instance. So in our case, for this demo, we're going to use the Amazon Web Service cloud provider. So we're going to click on the AWS box. Of course, if you're going to try to do this yourself, you'll have to have credentials or you have to have an AWS account with some credit on it, which you'll have to use to instantiate the infrastructure. In our case, we have credentials for our account. One thing we did is select a region on which we'd like to run our infrastructure. In our case, we're going to run it in Ireland. This is almost arbitrary in large part. Depending on the region one selects, the prices can vary slightly. One important thing is that one should consider is that Amazon has data centers in Europe and outside of Europe. So depending on what you select here, your data will be going either staying in Europe or will be going outside of Europe to be processed. So in our case, we're going to use Ireland. Now we've filled in our access key ID and our secret key, and the next step will be to click on Next. The next thing we need to do is select the password that we want to use to access the services that the portal is going to deploy for us. The same password will be used for both Galaxy and Jupyter once they'll be instantiated. So we click on Next again. Now the portal asks us to confirm the information that we entered. Everything looks good to us, so we're going to click on Deploy and go ahead with the operation. Now, the portal is taking us to our deployment list. Here we see some deployments that were done, that were already running from before, and also the one we just created. The one we just created is this last one, which you can see the status is starting, and the progress bar is going to show us how the deployment process is progressing. It's not very linear, mind you, the progress bar. It looks like we're already 2/3 of the way there, but it's actually going to take a few more minutes before the deployment is ready to do useful operations. Towards the top of the box, we can see the name that's been assigned to the deployment. At the moment, unfortunately, you can't name your deployments, but you're going to have a name assigned to you or to your deployment. But all deployments are going to have a unique name, so you can use this as an identifier. Now, our deployment in question seems to have had a problem, but that's okay. We have others that are running. Okay, one thing I wanted to show you, we can actually access the logs of the deployment. So by clicking on the logs button, a new window will open through which you'll be able to see what the deployment process generated. In case of errors, this is useful for debugging, of course. You can also download the log using the link at the top, and then email people in PhenoMeNal to get help with your failed deployments when they happen. Okay, now we're back to our CRE list. And let's have a look at a running deployment. So the one here in the middle is running. It was started this morning at 10:30 a.m. So through this box, we can see the icons at the bottom that show the services that are running on this CRE. We see Jupiter, we see Galaxy, and we see Luigi. These services, or rather these icons here, are actually links which we can use to access the services on the CRE. So if we use the key icon just on top to copy the password, this will be the same password that we entered earlier, but for convenience, we can copy it from here. Now we can select one of the services that we're running in the CRE, say Jupiter, for instance. And we can use the password that we just copied to get into our Jupiter notebook. Okay, so from here we have access to Jupiter running on our CRE, and we can use it to do useful work. Likewise, we can access Galaxy in the same manner. If you just click on the icon, we have access to Galaxy. And we can log in just like we would with any Galaxy installation by using the password that we showed earlier. And finally, the last part that's running on our CRE is Luigi. You can also click on the link there, and you get access to your Luigi dashboard through which you can run analyses. Okay, so as a final step, let's stop the CRE that we started. If we look at the box, there's a stop button at the bottom. We can click on this button and let the portal destroy the deployment that we have. We can confirm, of course, yes. And now the portal is going to go and tear down that CRE, remove any data that's there, and stop using your cloud credits. Okay, so this final step concludes our training session. If there's any questions from the live audience, we're happy to take them. And if you're watching this as a recorded session, remember that you can still contact us through the help and support links on the PhenoMeNal portal. And that's all. Thank you.